Well, the first thing to pull me into the martial arts had to be there were gangs everywhere. Seven Crowns, Seven Immortals, Savage Skulls, Ghetto Brothers. They were everywhere. And I had to be able to defend myself. My brother said, my brother was also a martial artist and was also my pop. And he said, hey man, never let them know that you know martial arts. The minute you start kicking or punching, they're going to jump you. So be careful with that. But I was just at one time, I was just scared to really walk the street as a kid. So I had to learn how to actually protect myself. So that was the reason that, I got into, and then I started going to 42nd Street, watching all the Kung Fu movies, 3 in a row. I was there all day, especially during the wintertime when it was cold. I was there all day watching Kung Fu movies, and I just absolutely loved it. Number two, what's number two?
Did you ever want to?
You can say it.
Did you ever want to quit?
Now, after learning martial arts, did I ever want to quit? I was just doing other things. I was playing basketball. I was really into basketball. That was my sport, was basketball. And of course, girls. And that was the only reason why I stopped. But what made me start again was girls. I remember I was about 6 feet when I was 13, and another guy around the neighborhood, he was 6 feet too. His name was Jackie. And Jackie was a bad kid. He went to Spofford. I don't know if a lot of people remember Spofford, but that's where they sent juvenile delinquents. Well, when Jackie came back from Spofford, he was 6'5" and muscular. And I had this girlfriend named Lisa, and she had a heel game. And at that time, everybody was wearing short shorts. They call them hot pants. And she was walking in her hot pants and had a heel game. Now, we're only in 7th grade, but we thought we were adults. At that time, kids emulated and tried to be adults. Today, you got adults trying to act like kids, men dressing like children and doing things that children would do when we were trying to actually imitate and emulate adults. So myself and Lisa's walking down hand in hand. I had this fedora hat, and I see Jackie, and there's some guys on the stoop who's part of Jackie's family. It's like this is the crime family. You had not a bad neighborhood, but they had this one house where all the criminals live, and they're all born and they're hanging around all day. That was Jackie. So Jackie sees me. I ain't seen him since he went to Spofford. He said, yo, what's up, Mahalio? How you doing, Mahalio? That's my real name is Mahalio, and everybody would call me Mahalio. Then later on, everybody started calling me Mo. It was just simpler. But he said, yo, Mahalio, man, what's going on? I said, everything is cool. He said, yeah, nice hat, man. Let me see that. Takes the hat off my head, puts it on his head. He looks over there at the dudes on the stoop. They drinking 40s, looking very gang-like. He goes, hey, yo, man, how I look? The hat fits me. They go, yeah, man, that looks good, man. You should get a hat like that. He looked at me and he said, hey, man, you good, you can go. I said, what? I said, yo, man, give me my hat. And, because he had grown so tall, he's a reach. I said, yo, man, give me my hat. And when I reached for the hat, the guys got off the stoop. And I said, they're going to jump me. They're going to jump me, and I'm going to get my behind whooped in front of this girl. So she pulled me and she said, let's go. And I said, yeah, you're right, honey, let's go. I walked down the street. We walked hand in hand. By the time I got to the next corner, I totally had a breakdown. I became a baby again. I started bawling and crying like a little baby. I was so hurt. And I said, I will go back and fight him. She said, no, you made the right decision. Now, she said I made the right decision, but trust me, after seeing me get embarrassed like that, my relationship with Lisa sort of just ended. And then years later, I'm in college and I meet this girl, and she is a real model. Because young girls today, I'm an Instagram model. I take pictures and I'm an Instagram model. I'm talking about back, this was in the 80s, when you had to be signed to a modeling agency. And she was a real model, beautiful girl. Mother was a doctor, father was a lawyer. They were the real Jeffersons to me. Remember the Jeffersons? Well, moving on up to the east side. Well, they lived on the east side of Manhattan, 23rd Street, and they were the real east side people that we saw. I thought they were the Jeffersons. And I'm a kid from Queens. So Siobhan and I was walking down the street, and there's this guy, he's driving slow, and there's a lot of guys in the car. He goes, yo, Siobhan! Yo! Yo, Siobhan, you hear me? Now I'm wearing all white, and I got a white hat, and I got white shirt that's open. I got a chain around. I got the bracelet on. You know, I'm the cool kid. And I got white shoes, and we're walking in the summertime. He said, yo, Siobhan, don't make me come over there. He gets out the car. Siobhan says, don't say anything. He walks right in front of us. First thing he tells me, yo, let her hand go. I looked at him. Now I remember that situation that happened with Lisa. He said, I said, let her hand go, yo. I took Siobhan and I put her behind me. And I just gave him a stare. I said nothing. I just looked at him. I was prepared that day because, again, I get jumped by the dudes in the car. Those are his guys. Once we start fighting, they're coming out, and it's going to be more than one. And they might not let me shoot a fair one unless I negotiate with them. Can we shoot a fair one? And I remember my brother said, and once you start coming out with a karate kick or anything like that, they're going to jump you. So, and this guy was big. He was muscular. He was sweating all over the place. So he was a menacing person. That voice, the body matched his voice. So I looked at him and I just stared him down, and I'm just like, I'm not going to move until he moves. But if he moves, I'm going to give him a front kick. I'm going to give him a front kick, and I'm going to punch him right in his throat. He looked at me, and I guess maybe he just saw, you know, that I wasn't budging. He said, all right, I'm going to call you later. And he goes about his business. So it was girls. A lot of guys get in trouble over girls, and me too. What's number 3?
Teachers.
Now, teachers, I can't just name my first teacher. I have to give respect to all my teachers. Of course, I learned the 52 blocks from my uncle, Johnny Muhammad, and continued that with the great master, Reno Morales. And my first martial arts instructor was S. Henry Cho. I wanted to learn how to kick, and I went to do Taekwondo. And after S. Henry Cho and John Dinkins, I went to train with Professor V. And training with Professor V, I think that's when I started to grow into becoming a champion. That's when I became a multifaceted martial artist. I was able to use my karate. I was also using whatever little kung fu I learned, and also use this great art of jiu-jitsu. And the Vietnamese jiu-jitsu system was very reality-based as far as I was concerned, which was another reason why I really liked that martial arts system. And then later on, when I was older and became a master, I started training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with Renzo Gracie. I had a fun time with that, but that was it with the instructors that really changed my life. What's number 4?
What lies do most beginners believe about martial arts?
What lies do many beginners believe about martial arts? The lies that sometimes it's not on purpose. A lot of times they think, oh, I just learned this lock or this hold. Got it, let's move on. And the problem is in order for that to work in chaos, in order for that to work when a person has what I call malicious intent, that takes years. It takes years to slap a come along hold on somebody or hit them with a vertical hold. You know how good you got to be to get that off? So that's the mistake or the lie that even instructors, when they tell you, hey man, I got this new way you're going to be able to learn martial arts, and in 3 months and 9 months you're going to be a destroyer, you're going to be a killer. That's the big lie. It may take you, I know everybody remembers the 36 chambers, all the old school guys, where it took years to learn each technique. And I think that it's going to take a lot of time, and people in America, people in the neighborhood, people in the society at large, they just don't understand that everything we do takes time. Even a punch takes time. You know how many push-ups you got to put in for that punch? You know how much training you have to do with your knuckles, with your hands, in order for that punch to become lethal. When you punch somebody, you stop them. That's why what happens when somebody who's been practicing a little while and they hit you, "Hi-yah!" and they punch you and it has nothing to it, they go, well, the martial arts doesn't work. No, it's you're not ready. You're not ready. You just learned this 3 months ago. And then all of a sudden, a real martial arts master comes in and does the same punch and just makes super damage. That's the difference. That the lie is you can learn this stuff in 3 months, in 6 months. You have to commit. Commit to a system, commit to a person. Now, you just heard me say I would study 5 different systems. Please remember, I've been in the martial arts for 55 years, 57 years, I'm sorry. I've been in the martial arts for 57 years. I trained concurrently. Like a lot of my martial art brothers in my generation, we were the early mixed martial artists. We knew karate, we knew jiu-jitsu, we knew kung fu, we knew wrestling, we knew boxing. You ask the martial artists from the 80s or from the 70s, a lot of them, they knew a lot, especially in the 80s. You had guys who knew a lot of different martial art disciplines and trained concurrently. I trained in the morning in one system and then at night in another system. I trained on the system one day, Monday, and then Tuesday on another one, and then Wednesday with the one that I trained with on Monday, and then the one I trained with on Tuesday, I trained on Thursday, and then on Friday and Saturday I trained. You understand what I'm saying, right? So we were the early mixed martial artists. We missed the game by about 20 years, at least 10 years. We missed the game, but a lot of the martial artists who I won't name, they could have been great mixed martial arts fighters as well. But there was no UFC at that time. I'm ready.
When did martial arts start beginning a hobby and became a way of life?
When did martial arts become a way of life for me? I think it was in 1983. The year before my son was born, I started really competing a lot. I didn't play basketball as much. And my wife at the time told me, hey, look, you're going to be doing this and you're going to be teaching these people, well, you need to get money. You need to come back home with some money. And because I remember I was teaching people, I think for like $2. I had a class full of people for $2. And even back then in '83, $2 was nothing. $2 a class, I had enough money to get something to eat and then come home. And then when I gave that money to my wife, she was like, you can do more than this. And I started to think about it as a career. And I love martial arts so much that I totally committed myself to it. I said, everything I do is going to be based around martial arts, and I'm going to find a way to make money. Rather, later on, I threw one of the biggest tournaments in New York City in the 90s called the Martial Arts Challenge. Huge tournament. Threw it at Manhattan Borough Community College. I started at Mary Bertram High School, graduated to Manhattan Borough Community College. It was one of the biggest tournaments for over a decade. I got into the business of being a collector and also worked as a PI, as a private investigator. But martial arts was always connected. I started a security company, Elite Security, and of course I was a bodyguard. So the martial arts became everything. It became my glue, and still to today, it what glues me. It what keeps me going.
How much of martial arts is actually about fighting, and how much is it about avoiding it?
How much is martial arts about fighting, and how much of martial arts is about avoiding it? 90% avoiding it. I think that martial artists don't look to fight. Like, so you say, martial artists, you're the nicest guy in the world. Because I understand all the work that I've done in the martial arts, all the work that I've done. I can meet the guy that's behind the camera and he hits me in the head with the brick and I'm done. All that training. So we respect all people regardless of race, creed, color, or gender. And we have to really be aware that the martial arts is something that helps us with character to be better people. I think it helps me to be better people, a better person. One of the things that I do with my martial arts students, even today, black belts are on probation the first year. And every week, they're supposed to do something good for somebody else. I don't care what you do. If you help somebody across the street, if you give somebody some change, but it's called a good deed. And a good deed is important. Even when I moved out to my place in Florida, there's these two old Jewish ladies that live above me. One's 75, the other one's 80, but they get up and down the stairs. And one day, there is a fire. And I knew that they went upstairs. I saw their car. And you don't know anything about fire until you're in it. So the smoke is coming down the hall. Oh, that's okay. Let me go up and check on the ladies. When that smoke hit me, I started coughing. I said, but let me get upstairs and knock on the door. I got upstairs, knocked on the door, told the ladies, I'm gonna walk you guys downstairs, let's go downstairs. And it's so funny because when we first moved over there, a lot of the neighbors didn't really relate or talk to me. They clutched their pearls, if you know what I mean. And then all of a sudden they were like, how you doing? How's everything? Hey, good to see you. And my wife goes, what's going on here? What's going on with these people? I said, it's the fire. Remember we had the fire? I'm a hero. I'm a local hero in the neighborhood. My wife says, oh, God, here we go again. I said, I saved the two old Jewish ladies upstairs. I went and got them and brought them downstairs. So now your husband's a hero. And where did I get that from? Martial arts, being a good black belt, being a good person, and understanding how to extend myself to others.
How was it training with Wesley Snipes?
How was it to train Wesley Snipes? Well, Wesley Snipes, Blade, baby. But training Wesley Snipes was easy because we had known each other before he became Wesley Snipes. And Wesley Snipes would watch me in the fights, and he asked me to be his instructor. I was honored with that. And he's easy to train because he's such a talent. He is a super talent. He can do almost anything. So he was easy to train. This guy had the full package. He's a bona fide, a real martial artist. And sometimes I'd have to talk him down because guys would try to test him. Yeah, well, show me that blade shit. Let me see what you know. And Wes was like, yo, man, Sensei, I'm about to give it to this dude. I said, no, that's not what we're going to do today. We're going to take a woosah moment, and we're going to keep going. But yeah, he was easy to train because he's an athlete. So he loves training. He wants to train. So training him was actually, I don't want to say a joy, pause, but I want to say that I enjoyed training a friend of mine who had became a superstar.
What's the biggest mistake people make about self-defense in the real world?
The biggest mistake that people make about self-defense in the real world is that they think it's a movie. That's the biggest mistake. Do not take Custard's last stance, especially if you live in the inner city. What do I mean by Custard's last stance? If you are able to escape or leave the situation, leave it. Don't stand there and continue to fight. It only gets worse. He always has a friend. She always has somebody else. Don't be in that situation. Martial arts, your martial arts skill should be enough for you to exit. So don't make that big mistake of taking that Custard last stance and looking at your work and wanting to do more. And I also want to speak briefly about this stuff that we do is dangerous. And I talk to my students sometimes about, look, I'm teaching you this, like let's say some knife stuff. I'm teaching you this, but you got to be very careful with what I'm teaching you. I'll give you an example. A dojo brother of mine years ago worked for Transit. And he gets robbed by some kids. I think Rambo was popular then. So he had his Rambo knife. He's in his Transit uniform, takes his Rambo knife, stabs a kid. The other kid tries to run. He runs after that kid. He does everything he learned in class. He cuts the kid up and deletes the kid, kills the kid. Now, he's got to go to court. Got to pay a lawyer. And guess what? This kid has a father and a mother. He was an A student. This probably was his first robbery because I believe, yeah, they were trying to rob him. But not understanding how far you can take this. Martial arts is training for a long time should give you ultimate control. When I was Wayne Gretzky's bodyguard, what he liked about me was I wasn't bashing people. I was able to control them instead of damaging them to the extent where the people that you're protecting are going, oh, you didn't have to do that. I didn't want to see that. But after he stabbed up this kid who was running away, another thing, you got to know what the law is. If the perpetrator is fleeing, you can't go after him and shoot him. You can't go after him and stab him up. And he did that. He lost his job, and he had to do more than a decade in prison. And he's not a bad dude. But you can't take all the classroom deadly art stuff, the deadly art of survival. You can't take the deadly art of survival outside and not have control. Because control is extremely important. I believe that was his adrenaline, his rush. He was angry, and he's like, I'm going to finish them. But that was a real person. So, I know I'm going on a tangent, but I think that's something that we have to really be careful. This gift of martial arts that we have has a big responsibility.
Have you ever been in a time where you had to use your martial arts in real time on someone for chaos outside of the dojo?
Well, yeah, because of my occupation. I had to do some things to people on the outside that wasn't in the dojo and my occupation. But let me say this, anything I had to do, any scuffles I got into, the martial arts has never failed me. I'm undefeated on the concrete. And I don't say that with an ego. I'm so thankful to all of those people I named earlier, all of my teachers, all of my instructors, because the martial arts has never failed me. And I was under some very chaotic situations. But the average person won't be under that because that's not your job. That's not what you do for a living. But actually, as a collector, as a private investigator, there's been times when it really got physical for me. And I had to be able to use, or a person running security at a club. But let me say this about the club thing. All these guys, these new guys talking about, I created this martial arts system. We created it while we were in a club. It's impossible. You don't create a martial arts system in the club. You come to the club with skill. You don't develop skill. You know, maybe you have an opportunity for multiple attackers, but you don't develop a system in a club. You develop a system with a system, which is in a dojo. That's how you develop a system.
What's more dangerous, ego or fear?
What's more dangerous, ego or fear? Well, ego is dangerous because ego always lets itself be known. See, you may not know if I'm fearful of you or not. Just keep quiet, assess the situation. But ego makes you step into places where you don't belong. Ego makes you not take flight. You had an opportunity to run away from the situation more than once, but ego made you stand there. I've seen people have guns in their faces, and you got an opportunity, and the person with the firearm is saying, get out of here. And because you don't like the way he's dismissing you, you say, I'm not going nowhere. That's all ego. You know, you ever watch people how they talk to police officers sometimes? A lot of it is ego driven. Like, I'm not getting arrested today. The more you do that, the more you're going to get arrested now. You wasn't before. But when you started mouthing off and took a stance against men with weapons, not understanding that they have weapons, this woman that just recently got shot by these police officers, it's all ego. You can't, these guys with weapons are telling you to stop and you driving off and driving through them. I don't know if you guys are going to keep that for the political reasons, but that's ego, where you're like, yeah, you dumbass, and I'm going to keep driving. They say, hey, stop. I'm just going to keep driving. Now people are trying to, well, should they not? Be very careful. Ego is extremely, extremely dangerous. But ego is good. I got a big ego. I didn't win as many championships as I won because I didn't have an ego. But a lot of times, a lot of those fights I came into, I was scared, but I was prepared. I was prepared. I was trained, well-trained, and prepared to win those fights. That's what I was able to do. So ego, though, you got to be careful with it.
Last but not least, what is the first thing you try to control in a real confliction? Mind, breathing, or body?
The first thing you want to control in a confrontation, mind, breathing, or body. The mind controls the breathing, and the mind controls the body. When you're in a chaotic confrontation, your mind has to be under control. That's why some of the martial art greats, the masters that we talked to have passed, spend so much time meditating because they had so much skill, so much power in their hands, that glow. They had so much of that They had to be able to channel it in the right place, channel it in the right direction. The mind, everything starts with the mind. And if you don't control things with your mind, the body means nothing. If you don't control things with your mind, the breathing will go out of control. Because chaos attacks those things first. But it's the mind that controls the chaos. So that's about it for me. I think the mind controls the chaos. So you better have your mind straight. When a man is attacking you with a knife or when he's got a gun out, it's all the thought process that saves you. When you got more than one attacker coming at you, it's the mind that tells you, punch him first, kick him second, or kick him first, punch him second. The mind makes that assessment. For me, whenever I got into some heated situations, which I don't get into that anymore, but back in the day, when I was in the fire, my mind was like, I know this is old school, used to be this TV series called The $6 Million Man. And I could see everything. Where I'm supposed to hit you, how I can subdue you, what's next. I see it all. While you're talking like, yeah, blah, 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 and you just going off at the mouth and all your ego's talking and you punching your chest, I'm looking at you like, yeah. Like I did with my girlfriend's ex-boyfriend that she didn't tell me about. When he was telling me, let her hand go. I put her behind me and I stared at him, but I wasn't just staring at him. I was looking at what's next. So the mind is extremely important. It breaks down everything with that attacker. I find out who's with him, who's not with him. I'm looking at the environment, what I can use, what's going to work in my favor. And my breathing calms down. And my body reacts. Salute.